Today, I'm excited to reveal a top weight loss strategy, a trick that folks in the 1970s leveraged to stay naturally lean. It's a fascinating insight that's coming your way. The rise of obesity in North America became pronounced around 1977. Before this time, people weren't particularly vigilant about their diets, yet they managed to maintain a slim figure with little effort. So, what was their secret? Reflecting on my own experiences growing up in the 1970s, my diet wasn't what many would deem conducive to weight loss by today's standards. For instance, my daily lunch often consisted of a sandwich made with 2 pieces of white bread and processed meat. I'd have a juice box and maybe some cookies that my mom packed. And it wasn't just me. From grade 1 until grade 13, pretty well everybody in my class would brown bag their lunch and eat it in the cafeteria. Kale, quinoa, and whole wheat pasta were not part of the typical diet. Even whole wheat bread, though available, was rarely consumed. Attention to fats and carbohydrates was minimal, and the diet industry had not yet expanded significantly. Additionally, the aerobics movement had yet to surge, indicating lower levels of exercise among the general population. Given these factors, one might assume weight issues were prevalent. However, the opposite was true. People generally maintained a slim physique regardless of their diet. There was no government programs telling you what to eat. Your mom told you what to eat, and that was about it. So why was there so little obesity? Well, here's the secret. They didn't eat all the time. There's 2 important parts about weight loss. One is that the foods that they were eating, and the second thing is how often you're eating, and those 2 things go hand in hand. If you are eating all these foods that are not particularly healthy, as judged by today's standards, the white bread and the sandwiches and the juice box and the cookies, well, if you're not eating all the time, well, it may not be that bad overall. If you're to eat it constantly, then that can be a problem. And there's been changes since the 1970s in both what we're eating and how often we're eating. The foods that we eat are now much more processed. They tend to be a lot less natural than they used to be. We tend to eat out a lot more than we used to be. And those are things that we talk about in our diet. But we also have to talk about how often we're eating, because there's been a big change since the 1970s. Back then, people ate 3 times a day: breakfast, lunch, and dinner. And if you tried to eat snacks, well, nobody really thought it was a good idea. Your mom would not have snacks available. If you wanted an after-dinner snack, she would say, hey, you should eat more at dinner time. There was no eating at your table. There's no eating at the computer. There's no eating in front of the TV. None of that. It was breakfast, lunch, dinner, that's it. In the 70s, people ate about 3 times a day. By the 2000s, people were eating close to 6 times a day. So that's going to make a big difference. Both of those are very important, and while I'm not trying to say that the foods we're eating are not important, we have to look at how often we're eating as well, and that was the secret to the success in the 1970s. But how to do this practically? I have 3 hacks that you can use to stop yourself from eating all the time. Number 1, keep it boring. If you limit the variety of foods that you eat, you're naturally going to eat less. If you are eating the same foods over and over and over again, in my case, the sandwich every day, I'm going to be a lot less prone to eating too much of this. There's 2 big reasons why we eat. One is that we're hungry, but that's not the only reason we enjoy it. Food is delicious, so therefore you can eat for hunger or you can eat for pleasure. If you are eating the same foods again and again and again, the pleasure starts to diminish, and it doesn't matter what food it is. If you're eating it every day, it soon becomes routine and it soon becomes boring. Then you're going to eat until you're no longer hungry, but you're not going to eat more because you simply don't want to. That's often the secret with a lot of restrictive diets. If you have a diet, for example, that cuts out meat, you're going to naturally limit the food variety. If you have a diet that cuts out vegetable and is meat only, you're going to eat a less variety of foods. If you are eating low fat, you're going to have low variety of foods and so on and so on. So the secret to success for a lot of diets is simply that they limit the food variety. And you can do this yourself once you understand the power of limiting food variety. It's often also important to eat natural foods because there is a natural limit to how often we can eat them without getting bored, whereas processed foods are often designed to be addictive. So adding a lot of MSG or adding a lot of salt or additives or sugars keeps the foods interesting to us even when we would naturally get bored of them. Number 2, fat fasting. This is a hack to try and get control of your appetite for people who really struggle with hunger or with cravings. And the idea is to allow a period of very high fat foods. By doing this allows the body to transition into burning fat for fuel, which then makes it easy when you're trying to not eat or fast for longer periods of time where you're going to try and rely on your stores of body fat, because whether the body is burning dietary fat or body fat, it's the same process. If you're coming off a period of high carbs and high sugar like the holidays, for example, or you're having extreme stress, extreme hunger, extreme cravings, you can allow your period of fat fasting before getting into a period of restricted eating. The idea is to stave off the hunger by only eating very high fat foods. No dairy or nuts, because it's very easy to overeat them, but things like eggs, bacon, salmon, sardines, olive oil, avocado, butter, and any of the leafy greens. Teas, coffees, and bone broths are also allowed. Even if you wind up eating a lot, and very often in the first few days, it'll gradually taper off, and then you'll be able to control that hunger more easily. And this is one hack that we found successful in our clinic at thefastingmethod.com to transition people into a more orderly form of eating. Number 3, exercise. Exercise is generally not that effective as a weight loss tool because the number of calories that you burn during exercise generally is very small compared to how many we eat in a day. However, there are huge benefits to exercise, and one of them is to take your mind off of food. Think about a time that you are playing basketball or playing soccer, or going for a bicycle ride, or going for a run. In the middle of that exercise, have you ever thought, wow, I'm really hungry? Probably not, because if you're in the middle of high exertion, you're in the middle of a tennis game, your focus is on playing the game. The muscles are demanding the blood. The blood is not there for your digestive system. So you're not thinking about food, you're not hungry, and you're shutting down your digestive system in order to shunt the blood over to the working muscles. So it's a great way, if you have trouble keeping your mind off of the food, to do some form of exercise. The other thing that's often very good about exercise is if you can get out into nature. If you're going for a long hike or a long bicycle ride, a walk along the river or something like that, that is a natural stress relief. And it's how we evolve to handle stress. So picking up a hobby, picking up some kind of exercise or game is a great way to stop eating all the time. Really gives you something else to do. That is going to take that hunger away because you're focused and your blood supply is going away to your muscles instead of to your stomach. And you're not thinking about the hunger. In summary, my best tip to staying thin, like it's 1970, don't eat all the time. It's not so easy in today's world where food is all around us. There's fast food joints everywhere we go, and even in our workplaces. But there's hacks you can use. 1, you can try exercising. Number 2, you can try fat fasting. And 3, keep it boring. By simplifying your diet to fewer food items, you'll naturally decrease the frequency of your meals. If you found this tip useful, consider sharing it with someone who might benefit from it as well. They could learn something new. Also, if you wouldn't mind, please show your support by hitting the like button below. Thank you for watching, and I look forward to connecting with you again next week.